Hello and welcome to Miss Hannah Loves Grammar. In this video we'll be concentrating on the meanings, messages and methods used by Shakespeare in Act 2 Scene 3 of Othello. So the action begins with Othello putting Cassio in charge of night watching at the guard tower for the celebrations that are about to ensue in Cyprus. Othello clearly sees himself as off duty and his main priority at the moment is consummating his marriage with Desdemona. Iago talks to the audience and tells us his plan. We are fully aware that he has enough power to orchestrate this situation, and enough intelligence and cunning to get away with it. Iago wants to get Cassio drunk to put him into this unprofessional state that means that Cassio will lose his title and be demoted. Iago tells a lie to Montano, saying that Cassio loves to drink himself to sleep, obviously implying here that Cassio has an alcohol problem. This makes Montano think that Cassio should not be a lieutenant, and it means the whole whistle blowing on what happens when Othello comes back in this scene is all the more clear. Cassio has to go. So Roderigo actually starts a brawl with Cassio, who's been given a drink by Iago, or at least goaded to drink by Iago. It depends what version you are watching, the way that is depicted by the director. And for some reason, this brawl is so loud, Othello is interrupted, and instantaneously he demotes Cassio without hearing his side of events. For Othello is fuming here, he is livid, and he knows what damage this has done to the army's reputation in Cyprus. But also I think there's a pride at stake here, that he would let the side down in such a way. Iago tells Cassio that he should try and talk to Desdemona, who's probably got real sway in the marriage. This might change Othello's decision, he claims, on whether he should get his role back or not. Now we know, with the kinds of lies and deceit that Iago is about to sow with Othello about an affair between Desdemona and Cassio, this will definitely not be the case. Roderigo has gone from being quite wealthy at the start of the play, a wealthy landowner, to now being very much the pauper in Cyprus. So he wants to go back to Venice, considering he's lost so much money, and he feels totally violated by Iago, who doesn't even really thank him for doing that dirty work of starting the fight. Iago, though, is completely satisfied by the end of this scene, and by the end of this act, we know he's moving closer to getting the goals he sought for in the first place. So how could we stage this scene? Well, it depends. Director Oliver Parker saw Cassio as needing a huge amount of goading to drink in his version. The implication here is that, if Cassio wasn't going to drink, Iago was implying that, Cassio wasn't man enough. So that was the kind of peer pressure depiction of Cassio. He's just vulnerable and innocent. Yet in the TV adaptation of 1989, starring Sir Ian McKellen, Cassio is just drinking what's there, and he's actually not pushed into drinking at all. He's just drinking the copious amount of alcohol that you'd expect to see at a big gathering. So the question is, do you see Cassio as innocent in this scene and easily manipulated? Or a good-humoured soldier that's just swayed by what's on offer and enjoying the fun? Obviously with poor choice consequences. But which is he? It definitely colours your whole depiction of how this scene is handled. So what does Shakespeare accentuate through language in this scene? We definitely get the sense that passion is interrupted. The contrast of the excitement at consummating his marriage when Othello says, "My dear love, the purchase made, the fruits are to ensue, the profits yet to come." That financial metaphor with profits and purchase possibly hints at how marriage is an investment with many treasures to be found. Or it could be a reminder that for Othello and Desdemona, they both believe they've hit the jackpot in terms of passion and status. Together, they believe they're a formidable team. It's interesting as well to get Iago's take on Othello and this passion. Iago narrates it as Othello being so infettered to her love that Desdemona has absolute power, almost to play God. Reputation is the pivotal theme of this scene. And we grasp that from one of the most famous quotes of the play, or the most famous from Cassio anyway. And he says, "Reputation, reputation, reputation. Oh, I've lost my reputation. I have lost the immortal part of myself, and what remains is bestial." That repetition accentuates his loss and disappointment. It's a core part of his identity, and as a well-bred, well-mannered, very cultured man, The idea of losing his reputation is huge. By referring to his reputation as immortal, that part of his identity he believed would leave a great legacy for him and live beyond him. And we now realise how vulnerable and lost he will be without it. And there's a great contrast, I believe, between immortal and bestial. Immortal is dismissed, and the bestial, wow, it's dehumanising. It's so much self-loathing that he has for his poor choices and his poor actions. And it's the way he doesn't relent from the persistent repetition. When he says to Iago and pleads, "My reputation, Iago, my reputation." The possessive pronoun my once more, asserting how much a core part of his identity that was. But it's that sense of loss, that shock and realisation at what he's lost, that is heightened so much further through how much he repeats reputation. And yet we get the other side of what reputation is from gleaning what Iago says. When he says reputation is an idle and most false imposition, oft got without merit and lost without deserving. Wow, what a contrast between he and Cassio. I think it says a lot about how Iago's integrity operates, or lack of integrity operates. Iago actually chooses to personify reputation here as idle and false and as a burden. It's a great way of us seeing Iago's manipulation at work, though, because he's highlighting here his innocence and naivety to the importance of reputation, at least to Cassio, and reiterating once more that he will do what it takes to get what he wants by any means. And it's ironic because as we go through this scene, Iago's whole reputation is elevated. Iago is most honest, says Othello. We're reminded of how cunning Iago is and how much he will be elevated by every other character being brought down. But I think it's important for me to now delineate Machiavelli from Iago. What about Machiavelli? So the Florentine was seen as immoral by Shakespeare and those watching the play who were aware of Machiavelli. They misunderstood him as a political theorist, I believe, and actually saw what he was writing as crude and unfair and dismissed him as a man of the times in Renaissance. So it's ironic that it is Cassio that Shakespeare casts as a Florentine, who we know to be innocent, if anything, a bit naive in his actions. Yet Iago behaves in such a chilling, manipulative manner here. And so we have to question, as the audience, when we can only see the true colours of Iago, why is that? Are these characters designed to be so two-dimensional? Or are we meant to genuinely believe there is a chilling reality that people are so easily manipulated by someone they believe to be innocent from the start? The most clear change for us in a character is Othello and his anger when he returns to this scene. He's obviously angry when he says, "My blood begins, my safer guides to rule." He is raging at the commotion. It's the first time we see him lose his temper, and we know this is the beginning of something that we should not be seeing from our tragic hero. This is the way that he's losing power, by being so emotional. And it's the way he says, "Never more be officer of mine." It's so decisive. He doesn't allow Cassio to defend himself. And he also is brutal enough to say, "I'll make an example of thee." There's a zero tolerance attitude towards Cassio's mistake. And whilst it shows that Othello is decisive, it also proves that the cool, calm and collected man we met in Act 1 is definitely changing his mindset about how he should manage situations. And it's as if that blurring of the public and private is now something that he's paying a price for in terms of the decision making he takes. I wonder if he hadn't been dreaming of making sweet love with his wife, walking into that conflict and that brawl would have helped him make a better decision. But it's as if Othello is now blinkered one way or another in quite a dangerous and alarming way, allowing Iago to get so much power and sway and influence. So what are our takeaways from Act 2, Scene 3? Well, whilst Cassio's reputation is down in the dumps and ruined from that drunken brawl, it's Iago who gets a glowing report, if you like, for his reputation. He's seen as helpful, kind, and frankly a very hard-working support to Othello in an hour of need. It's Iago who's seen to be both orchestrator, director, and actor in this act of huge manipulation. And once more, as an audience, we see that he does get away with things. And yet, there's a question mark over Roderigo. We could say he's the first victim of Iago that we meet in the play. Yet here, he is definitely seen to act as a villain. He is not thanked for supporting Iago. If anything, he is completely dismissed by the end of this scene. Finally, we see Othello seen under pressure, and we realise that he's not as cool, calm and collected as we had anticipated from Act 1. So as we move into Act 3, we realise we're reaching a very important turning point. Drama has already happened, but we know the big drama, the thing that Iago's been working towards, is about to really kick off. Why not subscribe to Miss Hannah Loves Grammar for all things English, literary and grammatical?